Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Liminal Pines. It's been a while. Hi, I'm Alan. I'm the sole proprietor. I'm the sole owner of this YouTube channel. Uh, what is this YouTube channel? We do art. We do other things. We just have a jolly good time. But what I want you to know, first and foremost, above all else, is that I am a real person. I am not a robot. There have been a lot of robot allegations. As we can see right now, I am not a robot, so I would like please put those allegations to rest. I've been I've been harassed constantly about my authenticity as a human being, and so I'm just uh, please stop. I'm a real guy. See, flesh and blood and all. Now that we got that out of the way, the real important stuff, let's talk about the less important stuff. Um, Lizard Wizard, I am not a robot. I'm not a robot. Okay? I am not a robot. Let's talk about the second most important thing. What exactly is urban sketching? You probably clicked on this wanting to learn. Maybe you don't know what urban sketching is. Maybe you want to learn what urban sketching is. So I'm going to explain that here to you today. Urban sketching is sketching urbanely. And by that, I mean just sort of going out into the wild and just drawing what you see in front of you. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a landscape or like anything from nature. You can literally just draw anything as long as it's in front of you. I typically adopt a very general sense of like what urban sketching is. It doesn't have to be of urban subject matter. It can be rural. You can do urban sketching in your room. You can do urban sketching literally anywhere, just as long as it's not from a photo. And I'm about to backpedal on that quite a bit during this stream because, of course, because we want to make the stream entertaining and we want to draw along, we are going to be doing urban sketching from photograph references, but we're going to be pretending like we're there, and we'll talk about sort of the drawbacks to drawing stuff from photographs versus in person once we get to that. But for now, just know that urban sketching is sort of sketching from life. Like a plein air, yes, you are right, Lizard Wizard. Now, I didn't know this. I was doing some research because I have heard of urban sketching and plein air side by side, and I thought the terms were synonymous with each other. It turns out they're actually not. Plein air is actually more of a painting term, which I did not know. Plein air literally just means in open air. It's a French term. But typically, plein air is used to talk about painting. But I'm going to be very honest. I think that definitions like this are subject to change over time. And if it fits what we're doing, then I think we should be able to use said definition. So yes, in a sense, urban sketching is plein air. It's just that for some reason, I don't know, there are just art snobs out there who just don't like calling plein air urban sketching and vice versa. But yes, it is like plein air. I call it plein air because when I think of the word urban sketching, I hear that word urban and I'm like, when I think urban, I think cities, and not all urban sketching is urban, right? Like in cities. So I use the term plein air personally. But even though I'm doing like sketching and a sketchbook using pen and ink and pencil and whatnot, I call it plein air. So yes, but for the purposes of this stream, we're going to be calling it urban sketching. Another thing that I've seen that is a distinction between the two is urban sketching isn't necessarily about capturing every minute detail, which, like, of course, right, you're trying to capture like a story, you're trying to, think of compositions and stuff, but like, aren't you doing that with a painting as well? I mean, like, let's be perfectly honest. You're doing that when you're painting as well. So stop being a snob about your paintbrushes and your acrylics and your oils, and just let us simple folks with pens and pencils have some of the fun. Okay. Yeah, with that out of the way, we know what urban sketching is. I think the next best thing that we can do is we can take a look at some examples that I have from my most recent sketchbook, because in my most recent sketchbook, one of my goals is to draw more from life, to do more urban sketching, to do more plein air sketching. So we're gonna sort of combine the current sketchbook tour, that I normally do at the beginning of these streams, with also showing off like urban sketching, plein air stuff. So yeah, we'll go ahead and we're gonna reposition the camera so we can take a look at that. But I want you to take a quick look around me. This camera angle is different, is it not? It's a pretty different camera angle. Yeah, you're right. This is not my normal setup, because my normal setup used to be on that desk over there. Some changes happened recently. This is what we call our craft room. This is where we do our arts and crafts. It's where I do my streaming and my drawing, and where I have all my books and stuff. And my girlfriend has all of her sewing stuff, like that scary thing that's back there. And we decided that it would probably be best to sort of give us each our own little workstation. So therefore, I'll go ahead, and you're about to see the background in full detail, by the way. Ugh. It looks weird without the blur on it. But I'm gonna show you what we got over here. So this is what we're working with currently. This is my brand new desk, and it's a bit of a mess right now. The organization is not perfect. We're still working on that, and that's OBS right there. So if you see me looking over there, I am looking at the computer screen. But yeah, this desk is a bit smaller. I don't need all the space, but this is the new workstation. And this is also a standing desk, so, it can raise and lower like the previous one, because sometimes it's good to stand while you're working. But yeah, that is the most recent neat little development. Please ignore it. It is a mess back here currently. But okay, let's now that we got that out of the way, we're gonna pop this camera down right here, and we're gonna take a look at the sketchbook. Yippee! Yeah, I went silent there for a sec. I apologize. I just didn't want to bump around and make too much noise. So to speak business while I'm doing this, over the past week, as we know, the streams have fallen to a once every other week schedule, so I've had some more time to do stuff, and doing stuff I have been. If you've been on the Discord, you'll know that I'm still practicing my digital stuff. But sometimes on the streams, it's good to switch it up a little. So we're not going to be doing digital every week, as you know. But other than that, on my brother's Twitch channel, I'm playing through Metal Gear Solid 1 with him. So you can go and check him out over at Chemical Green Zero at Twitch. And I'm sure he'll have an edited version of the VOD posted on his YouTube channel at some point. But yeah, we're playing through Metal Gear Solid 1, and I love that game, and I'm having a lot of fun playing it with him. I've also been playing Sea of Thieves with him every Thursday. So if you're interested in something like that, please go check him out. We're just having a great deal of fun. Wait, give me a sec. I need to go turn my fan on in here. I'm getting a little warm. And here we are. Boom, 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 boom. Also, I would like to inform all of you that the next sketchbook tour is filmed. Like I did the script and everything for it. It is filmed currently. I still need to get some B-roll for it, and it should be edited. I plan on taking the next couple of days to go ahead and like finish the video pretty much. So expect that sometime within the next week, and I'm very, very excited for the sketchbook tour, for this sketchbook right here. I wrote a nice little script for it, and I feel like it's gonna be a very entertaining video. So look out for that. All right, yapping out of the way, let's take a look at the sketchbook, and I will point out as we're flipping through what things in here I did plein air, which of them are urban sketches and which are not. Just to reiterate with the sketchbook right here, here are my goals for the sketchbook. We got more plein air, check. We got forms and volume, and that's something I'm paying attention to while I'm doing sort of plein air. Things like shape design, again, that works with the plein air, and stylization. And I'm also taking these things with plein air, and I'm also at the same time using the things that I learned from all of this and putting that into drawing like portraits and people and stuff, because that's something that I still struggle with and that I'm trying to get better at. And the artists I'm studying currently for that are Kim Jung-gi for simplification of line and shapes. We're studying Peter Han for particularly his use of mid-tones to show off form, and then Takahiko Inoue for his use of rendering, again, to show off things like form and line quality, so on and so forth. So yeah, here is the first page. These are both urban sketches. This one right here, I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, and there was this little ATM building here, so I went ahead and sketched that out. This is not using an under sketch, I believe. Today we're not going to be doing under sketches. I do think that like doing sort of urban sketching, you don't necessarily need to be doing under drawings for everything, because we want to stay spontaneous and we want to, you know, draw what we're seeing in the moment, and we want to be planning everything out, of course, right? But we also want to sort of like have a little bit of mystery, you know. Here, this is an awful sketch, by the way, very awful sketch to have on the first page. This is of like a rock. I went on a hike, and this was like of a rock I was sitting in front of. I still have a lot of trouble drawing sort of like large rock faces. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. Here we have another plein air sketch. I was sitting in my living room, and this is sort of our entryway with a lamp right here. Again, we're not doing an underdrawing for this. For this right here, my biggest thing that I was trying to do was get the perspective down. I think perspective is something that can do wonders for your sketches. So I was trying to get all of that, and then of course you have the rendering on top of that. Here we have some Kim Jung-gi studies using a brush pen, and then we have more more of that. These are not urban sketches, but you know, just more portraits. That's the study, and then the rest of these are sort of doing my own portraits. Here we have another urban sketch. This is me sitting inside of a restaurant, and I was looking out of the window. This is like the door, and you can sort of see the lights on the outside. These are sort of from imagination, little composition sketches. Just some figures because I was getting bored. Some more figure sketches. I'm definitely trying to with these. I like doing sort of these like top down sketches because you're emphasizing like the perspective in that way. It looks more interesting than just doing like a flat like a face on. You weren't expecting Harrison Ulysses look like that? No, well they don't actually look like that. This is, I mean, because I did this from imagination, like I fudged on the faces a little. You'll see a little bit more as we get later on, but like he does not look like that. that's my error in being in my artistry, you know. Here's another plein air. This is again from my living room, looking in the hallway with a little shelf unit right there. The one thing I find hard with doing these urban sketches is sort of like finding a way to frame everything, because you know you're not looking through a frame, you're looking through your eyeballs, which is one thing that I find difficult, especially when you have a photograph reference. A lot of the framing is already done for you, but one thing that happens whenever you're doing plein air is that you have to sort of figure out that frame for yourself. And that's one of the struggles of doing those said sketches, is trying to figure out that composition without the frame there to aid you. Some more Kim Jong-gi. Freehand. This is a mess. We all know it's a mess, but that's okay. I feel like I popped off with these sketches right here. This is like an original portrait. Same with this. This one's from imagination. I was doing a little Loomis head. I quite like it. Here we have, these are from Princess Mononoke. These are just little, I did show it on last stream, but yeah, it's fine. It has been 2 weeks, so I forgive you for not remembering right off the bat. Here we have, yeah, they're from Princess Mononoke. What really I was like trying to do with these was I was like trying to look at the shapes of some of these frames. Like this one's using a lot of, you know, like triangles and sort of rounded shapes. This one right here, you have this like these cylinders and contours. Specifically, when we're talking about form, those contours are very, very important. And then here it's sort of showing all of these overlapping shapes and how they can create sort of depth in your composition. Here's an original sort of, this is not a plein air, but this is sort of like a composition thing. I was like, okay, what if we had like the leaves with the black background? Thought that would be cool. This is of a little bug crawling on a tree, a millipede. And then this is a sort of like a from imagination, like 3/4 view tree in a courtyard. Here is, this would see when I'm talking about like urban sketching, this would be considered an urban sketch because this was my drink that I had sitting in front of me. So like I was like, I don't know what to draw, I'm gonna draw this right here. So this would be considered an urban sketch. So you see like the definitions, it's like you can draw a lot of sort of different things, just so long as it's like right in front of you, right? Here we have some sort of shape studies where we are looking at things like form. How do we show form? We show plane changes through tones, through hatching. We show them through contours, you know, like rounded shapes to show. It's almost as if you're tracing your finger along sort of the planes. Same thing with these spherical objects right here. It's you use those cross contours to show that this shape right here has depth. And then for this one right here, you can also show form by darkening your line weight, by darkening your edges, showing that they're almost heavier. Here we have, you'll recognize this from the stream thumbnail, but I was looking out of a window while I was at another restaurant, and This wasn't the exact angle I had. I exaggerated the perspective on this quite a bit. In reality, I was nowhere near being underneath these things. They were a little bit more in the distance, but I was like, what if like I imagined myself a little bit closer? How could we push that perspective so I could get a a 3 point perspective, you know, sort of have these lines coming inwards and sort of, yeah, you're seeing the bottom of that. And then there's a little rock. That would also be an urban sketch because that was a little rock. More Kim Jong-gi stuff right here. A little study, and then the Loomis head that is showing like what's going on there structurally. Little portraits. I don't really have much to say about that. A Loomis head of that portrait, kind of showing the structure of what's going on. This is a tree. This is not an urban sketch. This is from a photograph reference, but if you can see in here that I was really trying to show the form of this tree trunk. I was doing these cross contours right here, and then I went in with an ink wash over and sort of tried to emphasize that a little bit more. Here we have, this is an urban sketch. This is plein air. I went to a park and I was sitting in the grass, and this was the tree that was in front of me. Again, I fudged the perspective on this a little bit. I was not actually this close to the tree, but I was like, okay, what if I was? So this is sort of using, again, that 3/4 perspective. And of course the tree's further behind it or further away. So perspective wise, they're going to flatten out a little. You can see I'm trying to show off that form by doing those cross contours with ink wash over it. Here's a twig that I found on the ground. I was sort of holding it in front of me like this right here. You know, like imagine that was the twig. I was holding it like that and sort of sketching it. No underdrawing, of course. Then this right here was a little chunk of bark that I had sitting like on this page right here. And really what I'm trying to do with these is like I'm trying to show off, okay, like what can I break this into simple shapes? Can I break this down into simple shapes? How do I show the forms of said shapes? And then afterwards, then you focus on things like rendering. It's like, okay, how do we show off like what the texture of this thing is? Then this right here is another urban sketch. This one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and sort of create a frame from what I'm seeing. So I had like my little thumbnail card. I have my little thumbnail card right here, and I was sort of holding it in front of me from what I was seeing, and I was using sort of like where the tree was intersecting in my sight line and sort of using that to plot it on here. So this thing comes in very, very handy when like maybe my eye is sort of failing in a certain way. This next page is just some, there's a lot of nonsense in this sketchbook, I've noticed looking back on it, but a lot of it sort of portraits. You'll see portraits, and you'll see like urban sketching. Those are like the two big things. Really kind of just goofing off here. Sort of doing more portraits here, trying out different types of pens, trying to do different angles. How do we render? Stuff like that. Here we have, this is a portrait. I was really going for like a real like Takehiko Inoue. He's one of the inspirations for this sketchbook. I haven't done a study of him in here yet, but this would be the closest thing to a study. I didn't have anything like beside me showing off like what exactly like I should be doing. I was kind of going off of memory, but like one of the things that I know that he does is he uses this light hatching in big, like almost like cell shaded blocks, really to show the form. Like here you have the nose, the bridge, like the upper lip, things like that, sort of give it like a three-dimensionality. Here we have a little sketch of Ulysses. This is this was what was it? I took a photograph of myself for the pose, and then I sort of like I Loomis headed on top of it, and I sort of like I did a lot of drawing and erasing, and I was like, okay, like how do I want this guy to look? Like what are we doing here? So that's kind of what I did here. Not a final sketch, obviously, not a final character sketch, but like sort of you're getting the vibe of what it is that's going on here. So that's Ulysses right there, sort of kind of what I'm going for whenever like I'm thinking of him in my head. Here we have some more Kim Jung-gi studies right there, and then these are two like original portraits from reference photos, of course. This is of a the beta version, yes, the beta. Alpha. Well, that's funny because like when I think of Ulysses and Harris, like I do think of sort of like wolves. That's sort of what I'm going for with them. So like the beta thing kind of like works in a weird way. Alpha beta. This here is like the hatching is all over the place. Like I was really kind of just like bored and like wanting to do just like a sketch of like a statue, a bust. Here's like a portrait that's like a close-up angle, so like the proportions were going to be kind of like weird. So that's why it might look a little odd. Maybe I didn't get sort of the lens distortion perfect, but yeah. Here we have this is all kind of just like messing around with like 3D. I was like, okay, like how do we show off like I'm thinking of like forms like wrapping around these objects, like a sphere, like a box, like the underside of those things. I don't know. And here we have just some more like shapes, some more three-dimensional shapes. And I was like, okay, like I was just going through and sketching a bunch of shapes, you know, showing the contours and everything, doing like cross contours for the rounding right here. And then if I had a shape that was overlapping another one, I went ahead and darkened the edges of the one on top of it to show that it's visually closer, which is another thing you could do to show off form. It's like, okay, if something's closer to you, maybe the outline will be a bit darker. Here we have, this is just another this is of a statue, of a bust. It was really kind of just, I was messing around with like, again, like the shapes, but also like keeping like the hatching minimal-ish, but also like being the same direction, right? This is like a from imagination sort of close-up that I did. Not of anything in particular, but you know, I was like, just like, okay, I want to draw like some eyes, like close up. Thought that would be cool. Here's this idea I had for like an artwork. Of course, Metal Gear Solid has been on the mind, specifically Metal Gear Solid 3, and I thought it would be really cool to do like a little character poster of this character right here. His whole shtick is that he like spins his guns and he's like a cowboy and everything, and it's kind of ridiculous. So I thought it would be cool to sort of like have like the full character shot right here, and then have the little panels sort of be him like spinning his gun and stuff. I thought that would be like just like a fun thing to work on, I guess. So this is like a little thumbnail of that, and I thought for like this one right here, for this panel right here, it would be kind of we're kind of like breaking sort of the immersion of the panels, because like I would have this portrait sort of like bleed into this panel right here, so it's like, oh, it's like that is the thing, the subject of that panel specifically, and it's part of the character portrait. So like I thought that would be cool. So if I end up working on this concept more, I'll keep you updated. And that's like a close-up of that character. We have, this is a from imagination right here, using like Loomis head stuff. I don't know, like it's just it is what it is. This is a an urban sketch of my brother, kind of very difficult because he was moving around a lot, but he was sitting in front of me and sort of I was like going very, very, very quick, so it looks very messy. Same thing, here's like my girlfriend sitting in front of me. Here's just another sort of little character thing of this guy. It's sort of him like throwing his gun in the air and sort of like spinning it. And like my idea with like that border right there was like, okay, like how would I frame that better instead of it being a square? So I would have it like that probably. And these two things I worked on yesterday. This is like Original portrait. Same thing with this right here. I was really focusing on like I was focusing on like good proportion, but I was focusing on things like line weight, you know? I was focusing on things like line quality as well. Like when do we have like round lines and when do we have like sharp lines? How do you use shadows? How dark should they be? Things like that. I really wanted to emphasize sort of the three-dimensionality of that. Same thing for this sketch right here, but mainly just for like the face, and then the rest of it kind of just follows. So yeah, and that leads us here. Congratulations, we made it 30 minutes into the stream, and I've yapped the entire time. I've been talking the entire time. Isn't that something else? I'll tell you what. We're gonna go ahead and we are going to number our pages are here, and then we're going to talk about the things that I do when I'm urban sketching. Okay. So here's an email. I need to make sure that things are right. Can you hear that? I don't know if you can hear that. A lot of alarms going in here. What day is it today? Today's the 6th, isn't it? Perfect. So let's talk about just a couple of things that I do whenever I'm urban sketching. So and keep in mind that I am not I am not I'm not a professional, so like take everything I say not with a grain of salt, because I mean I probably have some knowledge to offer, but like I also want to just like your expectations, you know, keep them a bit lower. So like the first thing like I want you to do is like probably and of course it wouldn't be a sketchbook if I did not smudge the absolute hell out of everything that I'm writing. But yeah, so like my first tip, and this is like before you even start drawing, is I want you to like recognize how drawing from life differs from drawing from a photograph. And what I mean by that is that cameras distort everything. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this point right here is just like inherently how cameras work is that they are lenses that are going to sort of stretch and distort things depending on things like the focal length or how thick the lens is, you know, and that sort of gets into sort of cinematography and whatnot. But I mean, I just want to show you the difference of how just like a normal, I mean, I guess like normal lens differs from like a wide angle lens. And I can show that right here because my phone currently has both lenses on it. So this is the normal lens right here. And then this right here is a wide angle lens. Now keep in mind the phone is the same distance from my desk currently, right? But just, I mean, I'll go back and forth. Just see right there how even just the simple change of just the lens itself can end up distorting the edges of the image that's in front of it. And this happens with every single camera in existence. That's just how it works. Now, sometimes it's not as noticeable, but it can make a big difference. That's why when photographers are going out and they're taking photos of things, they will bring a ton of lenses with them a lot of the time, because different lenses will have different levels of distortion. They can flatten perspective, they can enhance perspective. But just know that when you are drawing things from reference, and this goes from people to buildings to everything, you are experiencing a level of distortion that is different from the human eye. That being said, also keep in mind that because your eye is also a spherical object, and we have mechanisms in there that allow us to see in certain ways, our eye also functions as a sort of lens per se. And when I say that, I mean that whenever you are looking at something through your eye, there is, let's just say there's no thing as a straight line. And I know that can be kind of weird to wrap your head around, but if you were to take like a snapshot of what you were seeing in front of you right now, if you were to take a screenshot of your vision currently, you would be seeing a lot of curved lines. And of course, that could vary depending on how far away you are standing from something as well. But it does it in a way that is unique to you, and also like different than that of a camera. But also know that whenever you are viewing something through your eyes, you are also getting a lot of other external cues that give you an idea of things like depth and form and perspective, because we have access to the fourth dimension. We have access to time, right? We can see the way that like light moves in order to show off like how round something is. So just know that cameras will distort a lot of things, and they also provide only a snapshot in an instance of time. And the eye will also distort things in different ways, but when you're looking at things through your eye, you have a deeper look into what's in front of you. So just that's like the foundation of like why it's important to draw from life, because it can help a lot in those sorts of ways. My second tip for like urban sketching that I do is I always check your proportions. And by that, I really just mean like, I don't mean have a ruler in front of you, but just like and what I mean by that is just learn to observe the things in front of you. And what I mean that by that is I mean just like literally like take in a lot of time to just look at the thing in front of you. Because we have this tendency to, when we're drawing things from imagination, we sort of resort to symbols and iconography to simplify things, and that can vary drastically from what's actually in front of us. So when you are sort of looking at that thing in front of you, be very observant on, I guess we could like say like relative proportions. We want to be observant of like the relative proportions, because of course, like when you're looking at something in front of you, it will look massive to you, and then to get that onto the page, you can't draw it 1-to-1, right? But what you can do is you can like shrink that thing down onto the page and maintain the spacing of everything in relation to each other. And a way I like to do this is to like hold my pen out in front of me. A way I'll do this is I like to hold my pen out to me in front of like my face. And I'll like turn my camera over here to like kind of like show you. Um, you don't get the blurring. So what I mean by that is, say I was looking at something that was in front of me, right? And I was like, I'm not quite sure how the relative proportions of this thing work out. What I can do is I can hold sort of like my thumb in any particular place, I guess that works for me. And what I'll do is I will hold, and this would be like a unit, right? Whatever the unit is in my head. I will hold my pen out with my arm straight in front of me, and I'll sort of use that as a way to like measure the relative proportions. And by that I mean just like how many units is this thing away from this thing. Another thing you can do is if you like hold your pen sort of like vertical, you can sort of use it as sort of like a plumb line. And by that I mean just like something that is vertical, perfectly vertical in the space. And you can sort of like see like how things will line up with each other. Right? And I can do that the other way, sort of. I can find my horizon, my horizontal. I hold my pen in front of me, like that right there. And then I can check and see, like, okay, like, is this thing perpendicular to this? So on and so forth. You see it on Proco? That's right, because I stole it from Proco. I actually didn't steal it from Proco. This is something that I, like, learned in high school. And then I watched the Proco video afterwards. And I was like, oh, wait, hey, I've done that before. Another thing that you can do is you can use something, as we saw in the sketchbook, you can use something like a thumbnail card. This is a frame that you have. This thing is specifically a widescreen aspect ratio. We're doing the same thing with the pen right here, except we are holding the frame out in front of us. And you want to keep your eye sort of like in a fixed spot, because if you look at it from here and then from here, looking through it, it's going to change a lot. But if you keep your eye in a fixed spot, use like your arm or something, you can hold your frame out, right? And you can look through it. You can get vertical, horizontal, you can see where things intersect. That's like if you're trying to like really compose something, if you're really trying to frame something. You don't always have to do that, but that's just something that I have like just in case. And I can keep it inside my sketchbook in case I ever need it. So pretty cool, right? Yeah, pretty cool. Okay. So we're going to be checking proportions and relative proportions. Check. The other thing I want to do to emphasize is another thing I want you to do is I want you to keep the big picture in mind. And what do I mean by that? We have, and I mean, I have definitely, but as artists, we have tendencies to get sort of like caught up in details, right? We'll start drawing something and we'll say like, ooh, I like this thing right here. I want to just start really getting into it. I want to start rendering it. What I want to say is when you're urban sketching, don't do that. Sort of think of the big picture first. So what I mean by that is start you want to start with your big shapes. And this can be things like this can include things like putting those big shapes into perspective. So you start with the big, and then you want to finish with detail. And then you want to finish with your details. And what I mean by this is when you start with your big shapes, you don't run the risk of drawing off of the page. You can get all of your proportions checked, make sure they're nice and nice and accurate. You can get things like perspective in check, because when you're doing these urban sketches, things like the details don't matter as much when it comes to the overall vibe. It can, I mean, of course, that's supplementary, but really, what is going to end up selling your photograph, or I guess your drawing, your urban sketch, is going to be your large shapes and your perspective. So if, like, for this right here, it's like, yeah, that's nice. We have all the rendering, the ATM, we get the details, you know, but if you really break it down, I mean, what we really have right here is, I don't even know, I just switched to a different pen to show off. I don't need to do that. What we really have right here is we have a cube, right? That is in perspective right here. Horizon line is like around here-ish. We have a cube that's in perspective going backwards. And then we have a rectangular prism also in perspective that's on top of it. And then everything else is supplementary, right? So, but the one thing that is going to sell this right here is that perspective. If you can nail those large shapes and get them to be like aesthetically pleasing, or more like technically pleasing, I guess you could say, everything else will sort of follow suit. But the only way you can really do that is if you plan sort of your large shapes from the beginning. And then you want to move on to things like details. Then you can move on to things like contours and shading and everything, all of that. So, you know, you really want to sort of, even if we're not doing underdrawings, we want to have a degree of planning. And I'll show you how to do that when we get to the application phase here in just a sec. But keep that in mind when we're going to be drawing from these photographs here very, very, very soon. And the last thing that I want to sort of touch on is don't be afraid. Okay, like, how do I word this? I guess this. Don't be afraid to omit things that don't fit into your vibe. And what is it that I mean by this? What I mean by this is that don't get obsessed with capturing every small detail. Because remember, we are artists. Okay. Now, maybe your art style is ultra realism, and if it is, I applaud you. And I never want to be you, because that just sounds like such a pain. But you have to remember that our job as an artist is to interpret what we see in front of us in a way that aligns with our technical and aesthetic tastes, right? And sometimes that means that we are allowed to omit details that don't contribute towards our overall vibe, right? To our overall taste. So, I mean, I'll go back to this sort of drawing right here. Now, I'll tell you that when I was drawing this right here, there was a big, like, sort of electrical box that was right here. That was right in front of me. And you know what I said to myself? I said, that thing just looks ugly. and it's in the way, and it sort of overcomplicates things. So I took it out. I pretended that it wasn't there, right? That's like broadly speaking, right? When I talk about omitting, like I was omitting like an entire object, but like also consider that we are omitting things like for this right here, like this material is like brick. Now you wouldn't know from looking at this right here because I didn't really find it to be necessary. I didn't want to overcomplicate things. I feel like it would have sort of distracted from just like the overall sort of like shape of this thing, right? So instead of like meticulously going through and rendering every single little brick, I just decided in the moment I'm not going to draw them because it does not go with my vibe. It does not go with the vibe that I was setting out to capture. And I want to see if I can have any other examples of that right there. For something like this right here, right? You can see that if you were to look at one of these bottles in person, right? There's more stuff on it, right? There's more junk that is on this bottle right here, but I was like, okay, this is just gonna overcomplicate things, and I'm just gonna omit them for simplicity's sake, right? But also, I also simplified something like the logo right here, right? I mean, the actual logo in front is not like hatched in, it's completely black, right? These coconuts were a bit more detailed. I simplified them because they weren't important, because we don't need to overly detail every little single thing. We don't have time on this planet for that, but we also, as artists, we are allowed to simplify things and make them just work for the overall composition, right? We want to focus on things that we think are important, that fit our vibe. That is our job as an artist. We want to show you what we are noticing. We want to show you our taste in the subject, what we find to be the most important thing about that subject. And this can range from things like details, but it can also range from things like composition. You want to shift something around a little bit, feel free to. I mean, that is the point. I mean, we are trying to copy life, right? But we're also trying to tell a story here. We're trying to bend the world in a way that we find interesting. That's my favorite part about drawing from life, is that I don't need to be perfect, right? And I don't need to spend so much time on it. And I don't need to if I wanted to take a picture of it, I would just take a picture of it, right? But I want to draw the thing, which I think is fundamentally different. It's like I want to draw and I don't want to take a photograph. I'd be a photographer if I wanted to capture the thing in front of me as is, right? And so keep all of these elements in mind as we go into our next phase of the stream. And that is we are going to be doing some little sketches. And I know what I just said. I'm going to be very hypocritical right here. Cameras are going to distort everything. We are going to be drawing cameras. Or not cameras. We're not going to be drawing cameras. We're going to be drawing photographs taken by cameras, because the thing that sucks, and that's the limitation of you not being right here in front of me, is that you cannot see through my eyes. And I want you to be able to draw along with me, and I want you to see sort of like my process. So we're going to break a rule here, and we're going to be drawing from photographs, but they're not just going to be they're not going to be professional photos that were taken like with like high quality cameras. These are literally photos that I took with my phone while I was at these places. So there's a bit of spontaneity there, right? So I apologize for being the world's biggest hypocrite, but I also don't apologize because I'm actually not that sorry. And I know what I said earlier. I said I was a little warm in here. I'm going to go turn my fan off because I'm a little cold now. So I'll be right back. Give me a sec. Wait, actually, you know what? I've been sitting here for a minute. Take a couple minutes to stand up and stretch. look in the distance, unfocus your eyes for a second so you don't get strained. It's important to take breaks. So take a just a like a minute break here real quick, and then we will be back here in just a sec. So 1 minute, please. Okay, we are back. Okay, let's I'm gonna go ahead, and I do have a screenshot here of the thing we're gonna be doing. Okay. My question to those who are watching, I don't know how many people are watching, or if people are really paying attention. I'm just gonna assume at a goodwill. Would we like something that's more nature focused? Would we like a building, like a structure, or would we like an interior, like a building interior? I will say the building interior one is very, I don't want to say it looks complicated, but the reason I chose it was because I feel like we could simplify a lot of it and still have it look good. The building is sort of like a cathedral looking thing, and then the nature thing is of like some like stairs, and then there's some woods, and then there's like a little like hut. The second option, what was the second option? The large building. I think that's what I said. Yeah, nature building, the architecture buildings. Okay, cool. I was hoping you'd pick that one. See the subtle art of persuasion. Boom, boom, boom. So here's what we're gonna be doing right here. This is, oh, where was I? I can't remember if this is from Nashville or Asheville. I think this is from Asheville. Oh, this might be from Nashville. It's from one of the vills, right? So yeah, here's what we're gonna be doing right here. So here's the photo that we're gonna be doing, and what I want you to do is my big thing that I don't want you to do right here is we're not gonna be doing an underdrawing. We're gonna imagine and pretend that we are actually here. Sure. So put on your imagination caps and pretend like you are here in front of this building right here, and we're gonna tackle it as if we were actually there. So I want you to close your eyes. You're walking down the street with your eyes closed, by the way. You are walking down the street. You hear the busy intersections. You smell the stink of the city. You hear the wind blowing. It's a little cold outside. You're wearing a jacket. You sort of like pull your collar down because you're a little chilly. And then you look up and you see this building right here. And you think to yourself, I guess I can sit here and draw that thing. And that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna do that. Okay. First thing I want to do, and I know that this is like cheating, right? Is I want to frame it. Right. It is sort of like cheating right here because the camera does a lot of the framing for you, but I want to pretend like we're framing this in the moment. This is just to make it look neater on the page. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be doing what I said we were gonna be doing earlier, and we're gonna be looking at the big pictures. The big picture, we're gonna be looking at our overall perspective and shapes. For that purpose, I'm going to be using my Pilot Kakuno. That is because this has a very fine tip, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing like a bunch of like really thin lines and a bunch of like really tiny dots to sort of plot out what we're drawing in front of us, right? So here's what I want to do. I want to go ahead, I want to sort of, we know that this street sort of like goes at an angle like this right here, but again, we're not trying to be perfect, but we're kind of showing off a bit of sort of that perspective. So we're going to be doing a thin line right there to show that, okay, that's where like our little street is. And we don't want to draw like we're not doing a coloring book, so we're not going to be like drawing like a very like thick line, right? Next thing I want to do is I want to sort of, we know that our horizon line, because this is a photograph, is going to be like around like the center of the frame or slightly below, because I could have been pointing the camera up a little bit. We'll imagine it's like right here-ish, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of, what I'm noticing right here is that we have this building that goes a little over halfway from our, I just poked my hand, that is a little, it's a little bit halfway right here, right? And sort of, we know that's going down. We know that this thing right here, because of perspective, if our horizon line is like right here-ish, we know that if we go above the horizon line, sort of objects that are like tilted away from us are going to recede away from us. So this little thing right here, we know that the perspective is going to be a little bit like that right there. We're imagining this thing as like this like large rectangular prism, this large cube. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sort of draw. Yeah, I don't really feel like doing, like the tree isn't that important, so we're going to push the frame a little bit over that way, but we know we got this big old sort of like cube here, right? And we got that's sort of like going in that way. We'll push that up a bit more. But wait, isn't that drawing from reference? And you said urban sketching has to be from life, but this is essentially a 3D presentation shown as a 3D image. Yeah, that's what I meant when I say that I was being hypocritical with this stream right here. Just for like the what I meant by that is that because like this is a stream and I want you guys to be able to see the process and what I'm drawing from, like we're gonna have to make some concessions with what we're drawing from right here. So yeah, you are right. We are not doing an actual urban sketch currently, but we're trying to, for the purpose of the screen or for the stream, we're the mental trick of imagining yourself there probably helps, but still, no, yeah, you're right. That's why I just want you. That's why I just want you to like. That's why with this point right here, I just wanted to emphasize, just recognize how things can be slightly different. But like, I'm using the techniques and stuff that I would use if I was actually like there in person. But like this allows us to draw something as interesting, as visually interesting as this, while also like being able to do it like on stream with you. You know what I mean? But you're right. I'm crying now. So what I'm gonna do right here is like I'm trying to get the perspective of this roof down. So I'm looking at my screen right here, I'm gonna hold my pen out like I said earlier, and I'm gonna establish my horizon parallel to the image, and I'm gonna see sort of specifically how the top of the building recedes down this way, perspective wise. So if I were like drawing like a horizontal line right here, like the building would be going sort of like down that from the roof right there. I would love to. I don't know if I could. Well, see if I did do like an IRL stream at any point, right? If I were to do like an IRL stream, by virtue of there being just a camera there, right? I would not like. It would still be flawed because I would be looking at you would be looking at the thing through a camera, right? So like I don't like there, unless you were like literally here with me. I don't think that we could like actually do that, but it's fun to imagine a world where we could. Another thing I want to do here is I want to establish sort of, we know that there's this like other shape within here, right? We have this like rounded sort of dome, not dome, but it's like this like archway looking thing. It's going to sort of be like that right there. So that's like that big building, right? And then of course we have like the tree over here, and we can sort of like, we know that that's gonna sort of, it's gonna fall into there. And we know that we have like a little like some ornamentation right here, so we know that's gonna fall like right there, right? And then the rest of the roof. So there's that sort of like big shape down right here. And of course, we're not aiming, because this is like a quote unquote urban sketch, we are not aiming for like, we're not aiming for perfection, right? We're just trying to, get the vibe across. So we're going to be acting as if we are doing so. This would be more of like an ellipses. I guess that's my fault, but we can sort of like fix that because we are looking at this from an angle, but that's all right. Just as long as sort of the vibe is there. We're looking for the vibe. Remember the vibe. The other thing that I'm noticing right here is we have this sort of like tower looking thing. Also, that goes up there, and then it goes up here. And notice how earlier I said you can fudge the, like I fudged the perspective sometimes. We're not doing that here. I could do it, but I don't really feel like doing it. And then we know that it's sort of like moving away because it's like further away from our like quote unquote horizon line. And we know that this sort of receding down, it's going to follow almost parallel to that right there. So we'll just say it's parallel to that, right? And it's going to go, we'll say it goes down slightly right there. So there we have our big shapes. You see how like simple that is to sort of just like plot out these things beforehand. And of course, like we could like go in and like say like, oh, we got this like building right here, but that's sort of like, that's in the background. We don't have to sort of like detail that out like crazy. We don't have to add sort of the car right here, because I mean, again, that just kind of like, that distracts from everything. But you know, that's the fun thing about like playing around with these sorts of things. We know that's going to be almost perpendicular. Using pen first brave, I could use pencil for the first lines. Yeah, but that's sort of like that's sort of like what I want to get at when we're like doing these quote unquote urban sketches, is like if we're out and about drawing from life, sometimes it's good to just have the pen and just like go at it. Embrace the messiness. You know, like I could sit here and do like an underdrawing, but like when I'm thinking of urban sketching, like I want to be there like in the moment. You know what I mean? That's sort of what I'm trying to get at here. And we know our horizon line is like right there. We'll just add like a little perpendicular line right here. So like I urge you, I urge any of you watching, watching this right now, just go out with a pen. You know, just like just don't let your perfectionist mindset get ahead of you. You know, we wanna have some fun here. Even if it means that we sort of like fail along the way, we want to have fun. Yeah, and yes, I am the fun police, by the way. So keep that in mind. I will know if you are not having fun. So I know that this sort of like outline of this building isn't like perfectly linear, so we're just gonna sort of show off a little bit of that. And again, I'm not being ultra picky about like where my bumps and grooves are, but we're just not doing a straight line. Look at that right there. See, now that we have our big shapes set up first, and we're going very lightly with the pen, right? We're not trying to sort of get everything super detailed now, but now that we have sort of our like base laid out, we can start going in, we can start adding in more details. So like what I want to do right here is I want to show off that this building is in front of this building right here, and to do that I'm going to thicken these lines, maybe not making them darker, but sort of overlapping them just to show that it is indeed in front of this building right here. And it does look like they're connected a little bit, but I kind of like the idea of that this building being like slightly like in front of this one right here. You know what I mean? Again, because I want to show off like the form of the thing. So like I think for like the purposes of this right here, we can just imagine that there's just like a tiny little gap right here, right? So like you see like how in the reference image right here, there's like this like there's a lot of like visual clutter going down right here. Like you have all the bushes and stuff. We're gonna like try and ignore a lot of that, and we're kind of just gonna we're gonna use sort of like our lines to sort of, we're not trying to get like these steps right here. I feel like these steps are adding like a lot of visual clutter that I just really don't really care about currently, so we're just gonna ignore those. You know, we do have like a little light bulb right here, which I think could be fun to have. So, but the thing is that little light bulb right there does sort of like create tangents with these windows behind there. So maybe it's not the best idea to have that light bulb there. So I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. We do see that there's sort of like this ornamentation going on with sort of that up there. So I'm going to try and sort of give the illusion. We're not trying to do every detail. We're trying to do like the illusion of detail. You know, you'll hear the artist Stephen Travers talk about that quite a bit. You know, that elusive illusion of detail. Another thing I do notice is that this little arch right here isn't perfectly round. It sort of has like a little thing right there. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. And we'll sort of try and obfuscate that a little by, of course, adding these little lines. And what these are going to do is they're going to show that we are looking at this thing from like an angle, right? This building is turned away from us, so we're not going to see things behind this because of perspective, but we are going to see it on this side. You remember using pencil for the first lines when doing portraits. Did you change that approach, or is it just for today? This is just for today. I still will do like some portraits freehand. It kind of just depends on the mood that I'm in. I do believe that sort of like doing an underdrawing when you're learning is kind of necessary. So like I don't think your entire learning approach should be like trying to like get perfect freehand drawings. I just think that freehand should serve like in supplement to like what you're doing, like when you're doing your actual like underdrawing studies. So keep on doing that, like for sure. And I still keep on doing that. But for this right here, we're trying to imagine again that we are like we are here, you know, we are in this place. I also see that I think that this is a very fun shape, so we're gonna sort of sketch that out, right? And then we have sort of these like little spokes coming out from it. I don't want to do too much detail, right? So we're just gonna. This is obviously like a little focal point for the artwork. I'm just gonna. Not trying to be perfect. There's like our little window right there. We can use the measure method from earlier when drawing from an image, or is it just from life? No, you can do it. I mean, you can't really see it right now, but you can do the same thing. You can sort of so you have two ways of tackling it, right? Because it's a photograph, by virtue of photographs, you already have a frame, so you already have a perfectly uh, vertical line and a perfectly horizontal line, but you can still do the same thing. You can you can hold, if you don't want to use the frame, you can still hold your pen in front of you. Like make sure you're directly in front of the image. You can still hold your pen vertical and horizontal to get down things like proportions, or sort of like if it's like linear or not. I'm not doing the thing where I like measure like relative proportions here. Well, I kind of am, because I'm sort of like looking at it in context of the frame, and I'm sort of using my observation skills in that regard. But we're doing it very what's the word? We're doing it very loosely, right? This is still a sketch, after all. We're not trying to be ultra perfect. See there's also this like little doorway right here. I like showing off little doorways and how they can be sort of like this gives it like an air of like three-dimensionality, right? Same thing with like we got that right there. You can show off that there's sort of like there's almost like a little protrusion coming from this right here. We can sort of show that off. Maybe that's like getting too much into detail, so I'm gonna back off from that right there. I'm gonna go back to over here, because this little building right here is kind of like the focal point of everything, right? So we know we got these like little things right here, like window looking delias. I'm not really trying to like get it like perfectly, like the amount of number. But we know that those are windows there. Then coming down here, a little bit of sketchiness. You know, we got these like sort of these little windows right here as well. And then we got like a little center thing right there. So right. Again, we're not trying to capture every little detail, but I am trying to show things like overlapping forms and everything. Then I did this right here, sort of has some roundedness to it. You know, the building right here sort of comes in. You know, there's little like windows right here, so we'll just show them off using that. These little lines. Being very sketchy, being very loose. What I'm going to do is, because I know that this is like a focal point and it is like a window, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to sort of like scribble in the darkness of a window, create an area of like, with like interesting detail, but also kind of like some contrast. Not with that one, but same thing with these ones right here. And of course we got our like little tree right here, and we know that kind of show that it's a tree, and we'll do a bit of like hatching. To differentiate it from the things behind it, you know. I don't know why I touched that. On which days can we see you play games on Twitch? You misheard. Currently it's gonna be Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Tuesdays are gonna be Metal Gear Solid Tuesdays, and then Thursdays are gonna be Sea of Thieves. So if you wanna hop in and see some comic mischief unfold like IRL, please don't be afraid to jump in and say hi. So what I'm gonna do right here is that I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna thicken some more of these lines for the purposes of sort of like creating some more visual distinction, you know? I'm also like, what I'm doing is I'm sort of like thickening things that are gonna be more like in shadow, you know? And this is just a personal rendering thing. This is like a detail thing, of course. And it doesn't need to be perfect. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through right here and I'm gonna sort of, I'm gonna add some like visual noise. Because one thing that I've found when doing like these sort of like sketches is that you don't want like perfect lines anywhere, that don't like, where things are organic and messy. You don't want perfect lines because it's gonna look weird, and it's gonna betray the intent of whatever it is that you're working on. So sometimes it's good to just like go in and add some like scribbles, you know? And that right there, like what line is that? We don't know. It's going to look robotic. Yeah. You are, and we all know I'm not a robot. So like currently beating the robot allegations like crazy because I am not a robot. Another thing you can do is you can add sort of like thick lines underneath objects to make them look like they have a bit of depth, you know? Like that right there. To make it look like they go down a little bit more. And of course, I don't want to add like the same level of detail like down here as I do up there. So it's like I'm trying to be very intentional about like where I'm putting all of these like sort of things, right? What I do want to do is I want to sort of highlight this a little bit more. All right. I also want to show off that this tree is also sort of there. Guys, I'm doing scribbly lines. I'm not a robot. You know? Yeah, ChatGPT has got very believable. It's able to do those scribbly lines very well. Guys, please, no, robot. Another thing I want to do is I want to go in and add sort of like this little like thing that's going on up here. This will give it a little bit more sort of like flavor, make it not look as bland. Yeah. Go ahead and we'll darken that back there too. And of course, when I'm like looking at like where I'm like darkening my lines, I'm also thinking of like balance. You know, I am thinking of things like sort of like okay, can't have too much here because then that might sort of like that might get in the way of stuff somewhere else. You know, so like I'm playing that game of like okay, like where do I do all that? So we can sort of show off the perspective a little bit by like putting these like perspective lines here. That's playful. Yeah. Gives it a little bit more three-dimensionality. Something like this right here, we can show off that there is a building right there, and it sort of like going that way. Another thing I kind of want to do in order to add a little bit of contrast, but also to show like the slope of this, I'm gonna add these little hatch marks. Not perfect, but I get to the job across. It shows that this, of course, is like a little slanted roof. And then this ugly building that's back there, we're just gonna choose not to depict it. But yeah, I think that's fun. I think we're gonna call it there. And that's the thing with like these urban sketches is that there is no level of like doneness. You know what I mean? There is no level of like okay, now the drawing is done. You kind of have to call it whenever you see it. What I'm doing right now is I'm just going through with my ink wash. I would do this if I was like sketching and urban sketching as well. I like doing my little ink washes. I'm just going through. I'm adding ink wash wherever I feel it necessary to add a little bit of shadow, to emphasize a little bit of form, you know. Also to add some interesting like mid-tones. It's gonna make it look a little bit more inky, which is a look that I like. We want to show off different materials, right? Different materials are gonna look like different colors. We want to show those sorts of things off. This is just this is a little like extra step that you don't necessarily need to do. How do I know when a drawing is done? That's a really good question, and one that I'm afraid I don't have a good answer to. It's kind of it's this is like such a cop-out answer, but like it's done when you feel like it's done, right? So for me, I know in this it's going to vary from person to person. I know when a drawing is done because I will start like struggling to figure out where to add something next. I'll be like jumping around and be like, okay, should I put something here? Should I put something here? And sort of what that tells me is that like I am like sort of I'm grasping for like I'm grasping for something to add. And maybe if I am like grasping for something to add, maybe less is more. And so maybe I don't need to add anything else. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't need to like go through and like uh it's called overworking, right? Like when we're talking about sort of when we're talking about a piece, we call it overworking. And I don't want to it's like you don't want to overwork it too much. There we go. I don't see like right now I'm like, oh, all right, what else could I add it to? It's like I don't really think I want to emphasize that a little bit more. Yeah, but it's like I don't think that I really necessarily need anything else in this right here. I feel it to be done. I feel it to be done. Okay. Perfect. So there you go. You have this is if I were out in public right now, I would probably say, okay, I did everything I feel like I could do in this moment. And now I'm just gonna drop it. It's done when it matches the drawing that you wanted to make at the beginning, like the drawing that you imagined, but it's from reference when you just feel like it's done. Yeah. Yeah, and that's sort of it depends, right? It depends. It's like when you say like drawing that I wanted to make from the beginning. Sometimes I don't know like when I'm going into it. Sometimes I don't know like what I want necessarily. Sometimes whenever and this is something that I'm discovering like whenever I do art more and more. Sometimes I am like exploring opportunities. And so whenever I do like something like an urban sketch, I'm playing around and maybe I don't have something in mind, but I'm trying new things out. So maybe sometimes it's like when I feel as if I have like accomplished that like said thing, right? So maybe it's that. It really does just depend. And again, it's different for each person, right? It's going to be different for you. It's different for me. It's different for he, she, they. Um, but yeah, and, and and when we're talking about like doing something from a reference, I mean, even when you're like doing a piece of artwork that is from like a reference, I mean, you still have to know when to stop, right? Because there is no point where you are going to be like, yep, this looks like this thing. Because it could look like that thing like when you first lay down all your basic shapes. It's like, oh, do you call it there? And I think it really just depends on like what your intent is. Like, what do you intend on doing? Are you trying to just capture the big shapes? If so, like, you don't really need to waste time getting all like the big things together. Um, you know, or it's like, okay, like maybe I am focusing on small details. Maybe I'll just go until I'm like tired of doing like small details. And so in that way, I do think it's gonna be different for everybody. Oh, I do think one thing I could do is I could darken these underside bits just a wee bit. That's gonna sort of show off a bit of thickness to these. Right. That's one thing I love doing. I love going through with like a darker pen. Sort of like adding some thicker lines to like just give a little bit more like to the form, you know what I'm saying? I think I wanna darken that a whole lot more. I'll darken that a whole lot more. I'll add a little bit more contrast. Okay. I think I'm done with this sketch. And as you can see right here, it's not perfect, right? Like my perspective is a little it's a lot. My perspective is a little fudged. You know what I mean? Like this right here is pretty much horizontal. My horizon line's supposed to be down here, so this should be a little bit more like vertical, like that right there, right? But now I know that. So I know like whenever I do my next sketch, I should probably pay a bit more attention to where my horizon line is. Maybe try and like get those big shapes to be a little bit better, right? Other than that, I mean maybe I like overworked it. I mean maybe I did. I overworked it a lot. But I mean like, hey, it's just a drawing, right? But all that really matters is I had fun doing it. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway with this urban sketching is like, if you don't enjoy doing it, I mean, maybe, like, should you be doing it? Consider what it is that you're doing. It's like, do you absolutely hate doing, like, do you actually absolutely hate doing art? Like, maybe you should be doing something else, or like find like something within that art that you can enjoy doing. So it's like Lizard Wizard says. So it's like, define your goal at the start. For example, you might say the drawing is finished when it looks like what I imagine, or the drawing is finished when I capture the main shapes. Yeah, and that's like, I think that it is very important to like draw with intent. Sometimes it's okay to like doodle, but it's like, yeah, it is very good to like have a goal to work towards. Whether it's composition, whether it's storytelling, whether it's perspective, have something that you're working on, right? Something that you can like pay attention to while it is that you're doing your thing, and then you will see improvements, like I guarantee it. So yes, Lizard Wizard, you are correct. What day is it? It's the 6th. Perfect. Okay. So I would love to do another sketch with you guys, but I am running very low on time. I do have something, an obligation that I need to do at 6 o'clock my time, and I do need to get ready for it. So I know that we would all love to draw some more, and I would too. But unfortunately, I talk too much, and I'm not as quick as maybe I should be. That's another thing. Oh dear. That's another thing. If you're doing urban sketching, how many lammies? it's just one. Well, this is the Lamy Safari. This one right here is, I mean, if you watch the fountain pen video that I made, you'll see me talk about these. But this is the Sailor, Fude de Menon. This is the fun tip right here. So that's 2 fountain pens, and then the Kakuno, which is ultra fine, like a super fine. This is a Japanese pen, so the fine nib is going to be very fine. And then of course I have this like flat calligraphy type felt tipped pen. Not my favorite, but I have it in there. I also have, what else do I have? Of course I have like my watercolor brush pen, but I keep ink in here. This is ink wash, not watercolor, so it's gonna dry differently and more evenly. Also have these two right here. I love these brush pens. These are Tombos, Firenze's. I have, this one is this is the soft tip, so it's bigger and softer, and it gives you more line width and variety, and looks luxurious, so luxurious. And then this one right here is a hard tip, so it's a bit more fine. And I love these brush pens. I use them for if I'm drawing like faces sometimes. So whenever you see like lines like this, it's either going to be these brush pens or it's going to be this pen right here. Yeah, check these out if you ever get the time. They're Tombow Firenze's. Yeah. And then I have like your miscellaneous like brush pens, like this one right here. Don't know what that says, but you've probably seen these in craft stores, art stores. And then I have like colored pencils. I have I have this mechanical pencil that I use sometimes, and it's a fat grip for like I'm trying to like manage like wrist pain, so like having a fatter grip can help, and it's got this cool little eraser that pops out. And yeah, and yes, this pen is very luxurious. It looks very cool. I love the Kukunos. These pens are like, these pens are crazy cheap. This pen was like $10 or $15, but it feels and it looks really good. But I did get a little converter in there. You can see like the ink flowing around. Pretty fun, right? It needs a refill, I can tell. But yeah. Okay, so that's all I got for you here today. So just to reiterate, it's not the best looking sketch, but it illustrates my points. And I guess like, don't monkey see, monkey do me. You know, take my words and sort of run with them, interpret them however you wish, change them up if you feel like some of it's stupid. I mean, I guess we are all our own people, so you don't have to follow me to a T. What I say is not the law. But yeah, so remember to recognize that drawing from life is going to differ a lot than drawing from a photo. Things like perspective can change. Observing form is easier when you're doing stuff in person. Always check your proportions. Focus on your big shapes first, like we did in this drawing. Even though I failed a little bit, I know I failed. I can recognize that I failed based off of this right here. So check your proportions. Check your perspective, if that's what you're working on, of course. Keep the big picture in mind. You want to sort of like make sure you're not going off the page. I mean, if you want to go off the page, that's cool, but you know, like work within your own guidelines. And don't be afraid to omit things that don't fit your vibe. So you can fudge details. You can sort of draw the illusion of detail. You can simplify things, whatever your focal point is. You can have your focal point be anything within the image. It's up to you as an artist to design those sorts of things. So next time, and I encourage you that next time you want to draw something, go outside, draw some nature, draw a building, or if you don't feel like doing that, draw something that you have around your living space. There are plenty of things that you could draw that are like in your room. If you look around right now, there are plenty of things that you can draw and you could learn a lot from by focusing on certain aspects of it. So please do that. Sometimes it can be very liberating to do so. Sometimes it gets very trite and you can sort of feel like you're in a rut if you try and like always have to draw from like a reference image, or like from, even if you're like copying like an anime or something, you know, like that you like, or if you're like doing a study of an artist. Sometimes it's better just to draw what's in front of you. So I encourage you to do that. It will allow you to have better observation skills, it will allow you to be more fluid, and it'll do other things. So trust me. You're in a rush. It was fun watching you. Well, thanks. Bye. Have a good night, Lizard Wizard. And I mean, you pretty much saw the entire stream, so you're not going to miss much after this. Have a good night. Thank you, and we will see you 2 weeks from now. But yeah, I guess I will point the camera back up at myself, and we'll do some closing thoughts. So, one moment, please. I guess while I'm doing this, I'll say, please go check out the Discord. I will link the Discord in the description of this video once I 100% the video does get published. Please go check out the Discord. There are other artists in there. You can share your artwork. You can ask for criticism. You can talk about materials. Do all sorts of fun things. And you can also get announcements for things that are happening on the channel. Like recently, I shared the script for my next video, my next sketchbook tour. So if you're interested in something like that, please go ahead and check that out. All right. And fade. Hello. Hello. All right. I need to get that centered more. Thank you everybody for watching the stream. I hope that you learned a bit about urban sketching, and I hope that you believe fully that I am a regular, I am a human being. I am not a robot. But no, I hope you learned about a lot about drawing things that are in front of you. Again, I encourage you. Levins, it's okay. It's okay. You can get the tidbits. This is the spark notes of what's going on. But yeah, please just go out. I mean, the end goal with all this stuff is that we just need to draw, right? If you're wanting to better your art, just get out there and start drawing. And drawing from life can be fun. You can learn a lot. You can get a better idea of how to observe things better, right? You can do all sorts of things. So don't limit yourself to only drawing from photos that you've taken with your phone. Get out there, or you use it as an excuse to go out hiking, right? Maybe sometimes all we need to do is just to get out and experience nature. Maybe just sometimes we need to get out of the house or the apartment or wherever it is. If you live in a trash can, get out of that trash can. But yeah, it's definitely it's important to get outside and see life, right? We don't always need to be looking at things through screens. Sometimes you just need to get out there and live, right? And doing this urban sketching thing, it allows you to just live a little bit more. Or maybe not live a little more. It's a vehicle through which to live, right? So, thank you for watching this stream. Go check out the rest of the art live streams. This is in a playlist. There's another playlist. There's hours and hours and hours of just me rambling and drawing, and you can get a bunch of esoteric knowledge about a bunch of different topics. So go do that. Please check out the other videos on the channel. As I said, I'm working on a sketchbook tour currently. That should be out sometime in the next week. You can go look at the most recent video I did, which is a fountain pen, why you should draw fountain pens kind of video. Look at the shorts. I do little art shorts. I do these little sort of postcard thumbnail sketches. Go look at those. They're 30 seconds. Yeah, that's all I really have to say to you. We will see you not next week. Remember, we're doing a stream every other week, so we will see you not next week, but the week after. I don't know what the stream's going to be about yet, but I will be sure to let you know through all the forums, the posts, through the Discord, through everything. I'll let you know what we're gonna do. Or if you want to see a certain kind of stream, please let me know, and we can make something happen. We can make something work. So I hope all of you have a good night, and catch you later. Bye bye.